and welcome. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for tuning into my podcast. My name is Gary, and this is Military Illumination. It's a podcast for anyone who's considering enlisting in the military, United States military, or just want to know more facts about it to find out what's really happening. I talk about things that the military and the government don't want a person to know about, doesn't want people to know about. Through stories, personal stories, historical information, military case studies, I illuminate the truth so that anyone who's thinking about the military or maybe who is someone in the military would be able to get the information they need to make an informed decision. Very simply put, it's just a simple conversation. I enjoy coffee and nice decaf, and it's just a simple conversation, a cup of coffee about things if the military doesn't want a person to know about, but it is vital in the decision-making process. Once again, thank you for joining me. Hopefully you find it informative, you learn something, and hopefully you'll share it with someone else. But always remember, always do your due diligence, and always look at the facts. This is my third season. I call it my seasons because there's 19 episodes and there's a reason for that. So this is the third one. This season really is it's about coming out, okay, from the standpoint of why I even started doing this. What's that happened that caused me to be where I'm at today? I'm a veteran. I spent 8 years, 5 months, 28 days, six and a half hours. But who's counting? Season 3 is about what happened after I had gotten in with my friend who got involved. It was a situation with the Washington Army National Guard. This is a Washington State issue, and it's through the National Guard. Season number 3 is walking you through step by step what transpired. What I want you to take from it is look at it as a case study, something that happened in real time. Now we're unraveling it so that you can see the pieces. We illuminate the pieces so that, as you can say, so you can make the connection. I want you to make it the connection. Okay. Connection besides what you're hearing about the military, some of the things that I'm talking about, and it's all over the internet. If you just Google it, you can Google a military various doctrine, you're gonna get a whole bunch of stuff. If you stop looking at the propaganda, and that's anything that really is just parroting what's being military says, and that's the ads and stuff. I don't want to go there. And what you take from it is you just look at it as I share with you and see the connections. Because what happened with the Washington National Guard and Brett Doherty was that they meant it for, as I'm gonna talk about, they meant it to harm a soldier that was innocent, but there was no legal basis for it, so it was very sloppily done. But in their haste and waste, they left a trail. Okay. This has been going on for me for almost 25 years. Okay. 25 years. Let that sink in. It was my call to action. So today, the focus of this podcast today, this episode, is to lay the foundation for what's going to be coming up throughout this year. Because you must understand these pieces before everything else falls into place. Season 1, Season 2, I talked about these things. and I very loosely alluded to Red Dockery and Washington National Guard. Okay. But now, this season, you're going to get the down and dirty, as you would say, the unadulterated version. Most of these guys, some guys are dead. I was sure they made their peace with God. Because whenever they didn't make their peace, I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but they're going to have to give account for what they did. That's thinking. We're all going to have to. There's things that I've done that I give account. But as I'm saying is, these things, these people, what they've done is they made it what they call it a case study. It took me this long to get over the anger, if you would. Because what I found out, what happened illuminated my career. What did I do? When I made the connections, I regret ever joining the military. I regret it. But that's here or there. It's just, don't come on and say, thank you for your service, because it's more of a sacrifice. But anyways, this season, this episode, we're just going to lay the foundation. If you want to know more, then just kind of look at my other episodes. The purpose of making these podcasts, the purpose I'm talking really for this year is for you to make the connections. Ask yourself questions. What would happen if this happened to someone I knew? Or how could this happen? Right. There's some questions you ask yourself is, was this fair? Make the connections and come to your own conclusion. Sometimes some people may say, this is fine. This is what it is, right? And I'm one of them. I am one of those people that's saying, this is the military. This is what it's all about. It's a bunch of scum buckets just trying to survive. We'll talk to officers now. But people who go in are good people. Men and women who enlist, they're good people. Maybe there's probably 1% of officers, but not really, because they're the ones I'm sorry. They're good people. This is not a slight on them. What this is, what I share about is what they have to go through. If a person is thinking about the military, you got to understand what you're getting into. You understand it. Once you understand what you're getting into, then do what you got to do. Do what you have to do. There's a lot of other people out in the internet. It talks about there's a lot of prior service people who went through, got mistreated, got bad situations, and they're telling their story. So I'm not the only one, right? A person just has to choose who they want to listen to. And really, if you're really considering a career in the military or re-enlisting, right, then just listen, right, and share and make your decisions. So that's the purpose. My focus of it's going to be the case study is what they did. If anybody not familiar with a case study is, I think it's basically there's what they say, the theory, and then there's the actual thing. The theory is what you hear in the propaganda the military talks about, what I'm saying, patriotism, for honor, serve, all that stuff. Esprit de corps. That's in theory, right? Serve will protect you. You have rights. But in actuality, it isn't that way. And so therefore, there is examples that shows that it is not that way. That's the focus point. That's what this episode's about and what this season's about. I want you to make connections. I want you to listen and make connections and look at it from the perspective of what would happen if this happened to you or somebody you knew, right? Or if you're in something similar to this happens. Okay? Then what would you do? And a similarity would be a person who was sexually assaulted in the military by someone in the change of command, and they attempted to seek justice, and then they're the one that becomes retaliated against and is subsequently kicked out of the military. That's the framework for what we're coming from. Okay. I do mention officers' names, the people who actually did the action, not innocent people, not the victims. I won't share those names. Anyone that's connected. But I will share the names of those officers, those 9 officers, and some enlisted who did it. As an example, not to share their names, to shield them. Not to share their names would not make it personal. Because it's not the military that does these things. It's the people in the military. You know what they say? Guns kill people. Guns don't kill people. Right? That's one thing they're saying. Something happens and everybody's like, get rid of the gun, get rid of the gun law, gun. No. It is the same thing with these case studies. Cars don't kill people. People kill people. Brittany Dockery made the decision to do what he did. William Palmer Shaw, the executive officer, chose to do what he did. No one had to make him. Dwight Williams, military judge, chose to do what he did. And we'll get into that later, right? To ignore the laws, to allow an innocent person to go to trial without a military attorney. They chose that. They were having fun. Because why? Because they could. This is just a user situation as an example of what happens when you're in the military, regardless of whether you did something right or whether you did wrong. But you had to understand that foundation. So what's the lay of the land? In the climate in 1998, this happened in 1998, okay, and I've been just feeling, it's just like technology just caught up. I'm angry as I was before. I still am to an extent, but now I see that this is something that a person that can help other people. That's the perspective I'm coming from. So while Brett Dockery, and there's a whole slew of them, I'll be talking about Robin Davis, Major, Jack, even our civic leaders, they had their hands in it. But they were having fun with this. This is a toy. Because they can't. It happens all the time. This is an isolated incident. What happened with the Washington National Guard and Washington Military Department, Washington Army National Guard, was not an isolated incident. That's what you understand. It's what happens in the military. This is a prime example that when you get in the military, in the United States military, this is what you're in for. And while this was happening, this whole process took me, I called up to the Army Appeals Board. But they appealed the records, and the guy I talked with said, we get over 20,000 requests for records correction a year. And that's just the Army. That was back in 1998 and 2002. You get over 20,000 records requests. Because my friend was trying to get this thing fixed. Okay. But they were having fun. It's just because they could. Yeah, I'll tell you. So the climate in 1998 in the National Guard was hostile towards women, hostile towards gays, lesbians, hostile towards minorities. It was a hostile environment where those people weren't being tolerated. Okay? And it still happens today. Remember, I said this is not isolated. How long did it take before blacks could be in the ranks with whites? Women could be in the ranks in certain jobs. They still get harassed. I'm not going to go there. I'm not right now. But it was hostile. Palmer Shaw, the executive officer, Great Dockery, was basically, for the lack of a better term, a witch hunt. They were attacking, they were going after, through these illegal investigations, women, people of various sexual lifestyles. I'm going to put that, okay? And nothing's changed. They were putting through trumped-up charges, finding a way to get them out. And they were having fun. It was described one time as William Shaw had a board in his office. And everybody who was going after it, the names are up there. What was happening? But that's what it is. That's the lay of the land. That was happening back then. It is still happening today. You gotta understand that. Nothing has changed. So what was the actions? What was the basis for what Britt Dockery did? He was executive officer. He was the commander of the aviation battalion brigade there. I'll get into it later. The basis for what they did, I would say the legal actions, malicious prosecution, was the friend refused to lie on the soldiers that Dockery and Shaw were investigating, or were underhandedly investigating. I guess it came down to some supply issues, some equipment, and the legality for turning something in and getting the replacement item of an expendable item is what it came down to. Unfortunately, my friend just chose not to lie. Had that person lied, now their career would have been in jeopardy, because now it would implicate them. But the actions of the supply chain was correct. There was nothing illegal about it. But without the testimony of my friend, the investigation couldn't go anywhere. So as a retaliation, and the person was being prosecuted, and my friend, the soldier, was subpoenaed to come in and testify in court and in hearing. You gotta tell the truth. Once that happened, all the focus turns towards that person. All the focus turned towards that soldier who told the truth. And that's where the story begins. How did I get involved? I get the phone call. Come over here to the house. He was upset. He knew I was a paralegal. He knew that was my degree. He knew I was in the military. I went and looked at the documents, and we laughed. I said, there's nothing. And I pointed out some mistakes. I said, there's nothing here. Rule number one with the military is that you don't have to have anything to be subjected to illegal action. That's the first thing. So for those of you who talks about that the friend was probably did something wrong, probably deserved it, no, that's BS. And that will come out later. There was no legal basis for it. And because there was no legal basis for it, everything that had to happen was illegal. That means everything had to be suppressed. And we're going to get into that. They had to prosecute an innocent person with no evidence. So what do you think he did? That's what you'll find out. That's the whole reason coffee. Hold on. So that's the lay of the land. That's what we're dealing with here. And now these things I mentioned it's still going on. It's still going on. Unfortunately, those people who are impacted in some way, in similar to my friend, most of them are silent. The others try to fix it through the courts, but it doesn't work out. The four things I've been talking about since I started this podcast, these are the four, I call them the pillars, for lack of a better word. Four things a person has to understand before enlisting in the military, United States military. Four things. Okay? These four things. These four things. I keep saying that you have to. But before I get into these four things, I want to share this one point with you. Is that everything in the military is I would say, they're upfront with anything. If those go in the military are looking for respect, looking to serve, lack of a better term, you better not even join. The most recent thing that came across my desk, that came across to me, was the fact that the Pentagon reclassified the deaths, about 4 soldiers that were recently killed, Iranian missiles, Iranian attack, reclassified them. And they reclassified, you can Google it, they reclassified them for purpose appearances. So no longer were they classified as dying as a result of their latest military operation. I don't know what it is. I'm not thinking about. Now they're just classified as just dying. And what does that look like? That reduces the number of people who were killed through the military action. Let that sink in. These soldiers were so insignificant that they just reclassified them. Oh, you didn't. This reclassification can have implications down the road for benefits, for honors. Now you're dying in defense of your country in a military operation that your president initiated. I'm sorry to say that. Our government initiated. Now you just, as they say, you just died. That's sad. That shows just what they think of enlisted people. Yes, on the recruiting side, in the ads, the enlisted people they're on the forefront. But in reality, they're nothing. They're just pawns. The White House's counterpart in Russia, they just push people out. They just killed 50,000 people, 50,000 soldiers a month are dying over there, and they just keep adding more to it. They're insignificant. So why that piece to it? To show about the time frame which I'm making this podcast, but also to understand what's happening in this case study that I'm going to be talking to you about. Insignificance. Okay? They did to this soldier because the soldier was insignificant. Let that sink in. Why did they do it? Because they could. Why? Because they wanted to. What was the outcome? Their pleasure. Let that sink in. So the 4 things that you have to understand now, and also as you're listening to the different podcasts for this season, is this: the Ferris Doctrine. Ferris Doctrine, in its rawest form, it prevents military people from holding the government accountable for their actions in a clean-cut way. I'm not going to give you all the legal ease what it is. That's all it is. Whereas if those things happen in the civilian world, the person who was impacted could sue for damages. They can get money. They can hold those people accountable. legally and civilly. In the military, you can't. So the Ferris Doctrine was in play here. Unfortunately, my friend didn't know about the Ferris Doctrine until afterwards, when he was driving away, and that one of the attorneys that he had to hire, who was ex-JAG, who basically walked him down to screwed him over. I'm not going to go any more than that. That's coming up. I don't give that away. So what it means is this: whatever the military wants to do, there's no one holding them accountable against it. Let that sink in. Okay? That's first fear. And you're going to see that play out here in this story, in this story here that I'm going to be sharing with you later on. It's going to take probably 19 episodes to go through, so you'll be fine. The public leaders, our senators, and our the Attorney General at the time, Christian Gregoire, Gary Locke, the governors, and there have been other governors throughout this part, and also attorney generals who could have made this situation right, who still can't, but they won't. And that's another factor is, once it happens, there's none undoing it. A good example of that would be A Few Good Men. That's a good movie. I watched it recently. Didn't really care for it because it brought back memories. But what happened to those enlisted guys? Yeah, the officer got busted and whatever happened. But look what happened to the enlisted guys. Look at what happened. Hollywood's always pretty close to what's reality. Get on the movie, fast forward to the end, and that's it. You can't handle the truth. I can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. So, our senators, elected officials, what was their role in it? They all knew about it. Every last one of them. All knew. Now, did they know personally? I don't know. But normally you would think of, when we talk about our civic leaders, is that you say that if you talk to their front office, you're talking to them. If you send a letter addressed to them, there's an assumption that letter is getting to them somehow. Wrong answer. It doesn't. They can care less about you. Unless you're able to put 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures donation in a money bag, they can care less. And even if they did, even if you did, you wouldn't be in the military because you don't have that kind of money. You won't be in the military. So don't worry about that. But they don't. I'm gonna share 3 things. I'm gonna share 3 things with you because I want you to get I want you to get the foundation for this whole thing. First of all, Patty Murray, knowing the office, knowing that Washington National Guard, Robin Davis, the JAG did not give the soldier an attorney, which they were entitled to. Went to court-martial without an attorney. Went to a hearing without a military attorney. Patty Murray's office knew about that. I'm gonna get to it later. They knew about it. And they did nothing. Let that sink in. There's mama in tennis shoes. She's just as corrupt as the guys in wingtips. Did nothing. In fact, I had a conversation with one of the what do you call it, administrative assistants, whatever, the person you talk to when you call your senator's office, and here's what this person said. Now, between my friend and I, we had sent information, documentation, a summary of what was going on, asking for our help. And here's the young lady said to me was, I didn't read it. Let that sink in. I didn't read it. Now, remember that. I didn't read it. Right? If I was a cartoon, Jaws would have been on the ground. Second thing this person said to me was, we cannot tell another government agency what to do. Let that sink in. We cannot tell another government agency what to do. So for those of you, so for those of the people who's got the myth that your senator is going to help you out, they're not going to. And I've talked about it before. I'm not going to do it now. So that's the first part. We went to our senators. We begged for help. Okay. Okay, Adam Smith. Now these guys, these are career guys. They've been there for a long time. I actually went to a function and stood next to Adam Smith. Yeah, re-election thing, like somebody introduced Adam Smith. I looked at him like, yes, me. Do you gonna go? I just looked at him because I called his office and the administrative assistant or whoever what they call themselves, they're just the gatekeepers anyways. But if you were gonna call and that's what the person you talk with. He laughed. And he said, "What are you saying? You saying there's a conspiracy?" Yeah, that's what he said. He said, "Yeah." He laughed. Oh yeah. Oh, so are you saying there's a conspiracy against your friend? Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, let that sink in. So much for your government leaders, right? But I'm gonna read this one here. Now, throughout that time period, I sent letters to anybody that was connected, representatives from the district, senators, Norm Dix. Oh yeah, woo! I went down his office. He's no longer doing what he does. But everybody's talking about, oh, Norm Dix, baby. He's a thing called Norm Dix. Yeah. Don't call him Mr. Dick, man. Because he didn't do anything either. It never gets past the front office. It never does. But I want to read this from, and this is from the government office. I'm going to read this. This is the email that's dated April 22nd, 1999. This was about a couple of weeks before the hearing, before the trial. It's about 10:07. I got this because I basically camped out at the governor's office throughout this process, hoping to talk to somebody, the military liaison there. It got to the point where I would just bring a backpack with some snacks in it and a book and some other stuff, waiting to talk to somebody. The person did come out and talk with me. And I didn't hear anything. I figured, what you're talking about rights. We were talking about rights being violated, not being given an attorney, not your legal rights, Article 30 rights are violated. You figured that's gonna start something, but it didn't. So then, yeah, that's just. Then I went back and I said, "Could I see whatever's in the file that you guys have based on this investigation, based on what we talked about?" And she brought it to me. She made copies, and this email copy was in the file. Okay. It's from. I'm not gonna say who it's from because I don't do that. But it's government email referral 320300 is based on a complaint that I had sent in. The subject was personal state employees, personal issues, praise/complaint. They received it February 9th, 1998. That was a month before the hearing. That person didn't have an attorney, and it was closed January 4th, 1999. This person was going to trial and didn't have a military attorney, didn't have an attorney at all, and they were pushing it through. Is that a violation or what? But anyways, here it goes. Follow up to previous contacts. Okay, JBW, I don't know who that is, right? Respond as you deem appropriate. Letter, phone call, directory, signature, whatever. This is the action. The comments is what it says. Against the illegal and questionable practices of the military department, against the discrimination and harassment of members of the Washington Army National Guard. Other mention of female members. I do not understand, and others male members. I do not understand your hands-off approach to the discrimination and harassment of female members of the Washington Army National Guard. Okay. Illegal and questionable legal practices of the military department. Your office has been made aware of the circumstances versus the United States, but you refuse to look into the matter. When the matter was first brought and asked us, is that it was a questionable, if not, when it was first brought and asked us, is that it was a questionable, if not illegal action by the military department that put this person into legal play. This is coming from the military department or the governor's office to the Washington military. So it's from the governor's office to the Washington military department, and they're going back and forth. Okay. The problem before us is that it was questionable, if not illegal, action by the military department that put this person into legal play. You refuse to look into the matter to the extent of the legality of the situation. The soldier feels so strongly that their constitutional rights have been violated that they have taken their case to the state appeals court. I believe that this whole situation could have been avoided if you had taken the time to review the situation from both sides and held your military department accountable for their actions, rather than turn a blind eye to the questionable legal activity. The question is, what legal repercussion will stem from this situation? These two people are going at it. The governor's office their hands are tied. The senator's office, they're tied. This is an example of the military being able to do whatever they want and nothing can be done about it. So you think about joining the military, this is what you're getting in for. At least the United States. I gotta say that I keep forgetting that this podcast is global, that people from different countries listen to this. So this really is focused on the United States Armed Forces. But it happens probably in other countries too, especially for Russia. There's issues. The difference is this. It's military in the United States is voluntary. That's the issue. And they're misleading people to get them to join, and then this is what they had to deal with. It's better that they're conscripted or drafted with no promises and let the chips fall where they may, than to lie to them, put them in the military where they're isolated, where their rights are violated, where there's sexual misconduct, right? Where there's discrimination, harassment, where there's racial issues. You put them in this situation and you do this to them. And you do it to them. That's what makes it wrong. So, I'm going to read one more time. Okay. Once again, it says, against the illegal and questionable practices of the military department, discrimination, harassment of women, of the female members of the Washington Army National Guard. And I had sent this, and this is their response. You refuse to look at it. The person who wrote this says you refuse to look into the matter when it was first brought to your attention. The problem before us is that it was questionable, if not illegal, action by the military department that put this person into legal play. Illegal action. Illegal. And this person says, I believe this whole situation could have been avoided if they had taken the time to review the situation from both sides and held your military department accountable for their actions. There you go. There you go. No, this is the email. No one's probably going to see it. It's buried. And it makes me sad every time. I just want to cry. My friend now he's not well. PTSD, I think. Okay. And then there's Jag. I'm really sad right now. I just want to end this podcast, but I'm gonna push through. And then there's Jag. All those people who were part of it. Christopherson, Dwight Williams, Donald, Robin Davis, Donald Bennett. Now, one thing I'll talk to you about the Jag, and I'll get into more what these people did. When you think about the National Guard, people say, "Oh, they're just part-time soldiers." No, this soldier was an active Guard reservist. It means they were active. They were active, full time. Some of these JAG officers were active, full time, active. Yeah, there's some people who serve a weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, 1 weekend a month, and 2 weeks a year, right? Yeah, but these were people. These were officers that went towards it. They didn't get their retirement. But these officers, they also worked for the state. If they were part-time, they had full-time jobs in the state. In some places, they were in Washington State employees. Some of them, these lawyers. Dwight Williams, he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer, even right now in Des Moines. All these JAG officers are lawyers and practice laws in the community. You can look them up. Donald, some of these guys, they're retired. They're out. They're done. Reggie Dockery, Major General, I think. He's retired. He's on his little happy self. Don't screw people over. Got a nice retirement. And they were able to do what they did because no one was holding them accountable. So you want to know how it happened? Because it could happen. You're saying if you're going to be thinking about, you probably did something wrong. This doesn't happen. It does happen. And it did happen. And it is not isolated. That's what you get into, whether you're National Guard, reservist, right? You go to National Guard, right? And you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna get some money for college tuition. I'm gonna be fine, right? But no, these kind of things happen, and it impacts you. If you're an active Guard reservist, it impacts you. It impacts you. So you wonder why they did it? Because they could. Because of retaliation. Because they thought that no one was going to be watching it. They thought it was just going to be a clean, slam dunk. This person was a year and a half away from retirement. A year and a half away from active duty retirement when this happened. Let that sink in. Okay? And they lost everything. And this is how they lost. Because that person refused to lie. And they were retaliated against. Now, as you're going to see, what happens is, that's why you got to stay tuned. Because how they did it is fascinating. How they did it. It really reveals what happens when there's no accountability. No other people there's no accountability. I want you to think about that. There's no support. There's nothing. So that's kind of what season 3 is about. I tried to get around it. I tried not to, but to me, the only thing that makes sense is to go straight into it and share. I'll walk you through it. I probably won't go into details, but you'll learn what happened, how the impact, and what's the connection. After each episode, you're going to learn a little bit more about the system in Washington National Guard in armed forces. If you're in the Washington National Guard, you're thinking about it, you better think twice about it. You better think twice about it. Because it's not as good as you think it is. Because there's people, and the fact that these guys retire, no, it doesn't matter. Because do you understand what it is? It's in the fabric. It's in the fabric. It's what it is. They're retiring, but there's somebody else coming right up behind them. Dockery, he had been in the military, active duty. Matter of fact, this year, they had to hurry up, get this thing done, because he had to go to the war school so he can get promoted. I don't know what I would do if I ever saw him. I don't know. Probably wouldn't do anything. I don't know. Depends if anybody else is around, but probably nothing. Because I refuse to do anything. I think the power comes in sharing. That's the power. If somebody can learn from the experience I had and maybe make a decision not to join the military, then I've done my part. I just that I made the connections. And I regret going in. And the reason why I encouraged my friend to fight so hard for this, to fight it, because I believed that this was isolated, and I believed that somebody eventually would listen. That's why. But now I realize it's just part of what it is. No one's going to listen. No one's going to listen. No one cares. Let that sink in. So anyways, it's very long. I apologize for that one. If you made it this far, thank you. Hopefully you'll tune in to other episodes so you kind of learn more. Hopefully you'll share it with someone else. My coffee's cold. I've been sipping a little bit. And I'd say it's just a simple conversation. If we were in a coffee shop and you was great, tell me about the military. What's one thing you can tell me about the military? I would say, don't go. It's not for you. I say, there's 4 things you got to understand about the military. And once you understand those 4 things, you got to make a decision. But know this, is when you go to that door and you raise your hand, you're in, it's game over for you. There's no one coming. There's no help coming. But I also know that if you go in knowing these things and it starts happening to you, you will recognize it. And won't be as a strong blow as it would have been if you felt like you're blindsided. You can prepare yourself. You'll know. Don't go to anything with your state senators, because they're gonna sell you. They're gonna sell you out. Right? Don't hire a JAG attorney, an ex-JAG officer to be your attorney. They won't sell you out. Don't do that. No one, the courts will take your case. They'll take your money, but you won't get justice. And know that when you call or you send a letter to your congressperson, it's just going to come to the person doing the entry-level job, the gatekeeper. And understand that the fairest doctrine trumps everything. Did I say Trump? I shouldn't say that. Yeah. Speak it out. The fairest doctrine is to rule the land. You're not going to be able to hold them accountable. I don't know what you're going to do once you're in, because you're done. It can impact your life beyond the military. It's going to impact what you do. It's a no-win situation, I think, enlisting in the military. I think it really is. It's you just going because you want to serve, but you don't really gain anything when you enlist. If you look at a lot of my things, my other podcasts, you really don't. It looks like on the outside, but you can do better. You say, everybody's got to go in the military. Who can defend our country? You need to wake up, because right now the military isn't used directly for protection of our country. It's used in police actions around the world. And what happened recently when those soldiers were killed during a conflict, he just simply reclassified it and said, no, let's see what they. Okay. They just reclassify you because you're nothing, right? You don't get the honors. There it comes down to being able to serve in the wars. There's implications to that. It said here, this is a overview. The Pentagon, this was the Pentagon reclassified 4 U.S. service members' deaths from the Iranian conflict into a new one, overseas operations category. What did they do? That lowers the official war death toll count from 18 to 14. Oh, that's too bad. It's only 14 people who got it. Four troops killed during renewed hostilities were moved out of the direct Iran war casualty tally into a separate category for overseas operations. The official public database figures dropped from 18 listed facilities down to 14. Yeah. The officials initially blamed the missing names on technical data glitches before the separate category was clarified. Lawmakers and veterans raised concerns that administrative change minimizes the visible human cost of the ongoing military engagement. And then that's what you're up against. Okay? So it happens. All right? It happens. So thanks for sticking with me this long. I want to get it out of my system, and look forward to having you join me again for each step of the way until you can find out what happened and why. Until next time, enjoy your time. And the next episode is going to be about how it all got started. Thank you very much. All right.